What's up, and welcome to episode 3 of How to Make a Knife. I'm Mike.
Steve from Cutter Fabrications.
How we doing, man?
Good, man. How was your week?
Good. Busy. I'm back to work full time. It's a lot. I'd rather be in the garage like all the time, like I was, and it's something I got to get used to. So, how about you? How's your week been?
It's been good, man. It's been good. A little slow at work for me, which is sometimes good. Sometimes I can get a little bit of knife work done or test some shit out, which is always nice.
Yeah, that is nice. I'm going to mention it right away. I saw that you put that S grind in that chef's knife you made. How do you like it? How'd it come out?
I think it came out pretty good. I haven't sharpened it yet, put an edge on it. I still got to glue the whole assembly together and finish it up, but I like it so far. Yeah, it definitely looks nice. Yeah. Feels nice in the hand. I think I just want to go a touch thinner here on this little belly right there, but
yeah.
Once I do that, I'll glue it in, see how it looks and feels and cuts.
So you have that all polished up, and if you were to make it thinner, do you have to repolish it all up again, or does the polishing kind of take off enough material for you to just do it that way?
I mean, we're only talking, 10 to 15 thousandths thinner. So I'm not gonna use like a heavy abrasive. I'm gonna use basically like a prep pad on the die grinder, and like a very fine prep pad on the die grinder, and see what it looks like from there.
Yeah,
that should polish up pretty quick after that. But
that's something I'm slowly learning.
Tiny little area.
Yeah, is thinning out a blade. I'm surprised how thin you can really make a blade and it's still sturdy. I always find myself kind of leaving more meat on it than maybe I should. And recently, as I've been making knives, I just keep on going way past my comfort of what I thought was thin, and it still ends up great. So the next knife I make a little thinner, and I'm sure I'll hit a point where it's, enough, but it's been fun to explore, blade thicknesses lately.
Yeah. And see how it performs after that too. Flexibility of it and stuff is always cool to check out too, when you get a nice thin one. Have you been messing with any like distal tapers and stuff like that, where you taper it down towards the tip?
It just I just do that naturally. I find myself when I'm grinding, I'll kind of put a little bit more effort towards the tip to make sure that the tip is always at its thinnest, and then a little more meat at the base of it. Not so much intentional as it is just kind of instinctual. I want my tip to be thinner, But I actually, I meant to grab it. I made that kitchen knife with the green handle, and that was one of the thinner kitchen knives I've ever done. I like a fat blade. Like, that don't bother me none. If it rips my carrot a little when I'm cutting it, like I want a nice weighted blade to get in there. But like I said, it's for you. Both works. Listen, you put an edge on it, it's sharp, it does its job, and it's fun.
Holds an edge, cool.
Yeah,
it does what it's supposed to do. Holds an edge, that's cool.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, listen, so this week we are going to just kind of cover some tips and tools to get started in knife making. Things that we wish we knew, things that we wish we had, things that we bought thinking we needed and maybe we didn't. So let's just kind of go over the basics and the tips for if anyone is actually thinking, hey, how do you make a knife? These are the first things you want to think about, and maybe the first tools you want to get for your garage or shop or, basement, whatever you're doing it in. So.
Yeah, so I'm curious to hear, like, what are the first couple things that you had to buy? Because a lot of the things that when I started out, I made for myself, so it cost me next to nothing.
Ooh, that's true. Every time I would text you on, hey, I'm going to get this, what do you recommend? You're like, I actually made that myself. I actually built that myself. We're going to have very different lists and opinions on this, and it's good because it'll kind of give a more well-rounded idea of, whatever you're looking for from the knife making and whatever your skill set is, there are options.
I mean, technically you can make a knife with, the bare minimum. You could find an old metal garbage can, take the lid off of it, drill a hole in it, and steal your girlfriend's hairdryer, and you got a coal forge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really could be as expensive or as cheap as you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's keep it in mind of we want to be cost effective and budget friendly. That way, it's something that as many people can get into. And I mean, let's face it, both of us did it as budget friendly as possible. I'm sure you weren't.
Yep.
I mean, you literally just said you built half your stuff, and I was, I didn't want to do really Amazon stuff, but I went as budget friendly as I could. So before we do get into it, though, I do want to just shout out. I got my hat made up, Alpha Blade and Forge. There,
man, that's awesome.
I'm so happy. I got one sitting right here for you, man. I got one for you. Nice. So we'll have to meet up soon.
I got to figure out what I want to do with mine because I was thinking of doing this logo in the front, and then because I really like to incorporate the knife logo in it somehow too. But I haven't really figured out how to do that. Maybe do like this logo how you did, embroidered it, and then maybe a patch for the knife logo or something. But we'll see. I gotta go.
You could do both spots embroidered, and once they do the one-time digitizing to get it like set in their system, they could just throw it anywhere. So, and this hat wasn't that expensive; it was under $20. So if you put a second location, let's say it ends up being $22 or something a hat, for $4 extra, if you're getting both of your logos and a more designed hat, fuck it.
Yeah.
I mean, how many are you making?
Awesome.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna probably make 10. And give 5 of them away.
Yeah, exactly. I have 2 hats for myself. I have one hat for nicer times, and I have one hat for work, garage, yard work, and things to get dirty and messed up. So
that's exactly what I'll probably do, like a black like you got, and then I'll see if I can't get one in this camo too. Because why not? It'd be cool to kill a turkey with my logo on my head.
Woof. Yeah, wearing your hat, using your knife.
Yeah,
it doesn't get better.
Yeah.
Well, all right, man. Let's get into this. So let's start with, I guess, the tools, the kind of the setup that we wanted. Now, I started with, like you said, a hair dryer. I had a log for an anvil. I put some cinder blocks and grill coal for my forge. So let's just cover those 3 things. Obviously, the most important things are you need some sort of anvil in order to hit some steel.
Well, yeah, if you even want to forge. I mean, some people might just want to make a knife. I mean, you don't technically need the anvil to make a knife. If you want to forge a knife, yes.
Right. No, and you're right.
You could do stock removal technically if you want, and just buy some steel and just try it out. With as little as a cheap little belt sander,
Yeah, and to be fair, most of my stuff is stock removal. I use my anvil more for the decoration and design. There are some times where I'll forge out some sanmai and stuff like that. So you're right. The anvil is probably out of those 3, the 3 pillars of knife making, the least necessary. The one that is necessary, though, is a forge. And they can go very expensive or very cheap. Now,
there's all kinds of them too. Like you said, you started with what was your pan? You just had something metal laying around or whatever, and you threw some charcoal in it.
No, dude, the ground. I literally just put a bunch on the ground and I put some cinder blocks around it.
Oh shit! All right, yeah, cool.
Yeah, scorched earth, baby.
Like the first time I hardened a knife, it was the same thing. It was cinder blocks and like a big rosebud that I attached to a propane tank to heat treat that shit.
Yeah. So I ended up buying one. But so let's hear it first from, if you decide to build it, what kind of effort was it? What did it cost? What was the most important things? If you were to build one, what do you recommend and what's important to know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into exactly how I built it and everything. There's all kinds of instructables online, but it's easier than you think. If you know a little bit about metalwork and things like that, which I kind of hope you do if you're trying to get into knife making. It's fairly simple. The only thing I had to buy, everything was scrap. The only thing I had to buy was a couple of reducers and the propane hose that went from the tank to the furnace. And other than that, it was super simple. I mean, I did get pretty lucky with my job. At the same time, I wanted to build my forge. They were building gas burners for a company, and I had all kinds of insulation lying around, so I didn't have to buy anything really at all. Like I said, besides a couple reducers and a hose.
Okay, so I was going to say, so
other than that, it was
the insulation. I'm sorry, but the insulation. Did you coat your insulation? Because most videos I watch, they coat it with something. Is that something you did?
It's a refractory cement that it gets coated in. It's like I believe it's like a fiberglass based cement.
Okay, because I never did that to mine. I don't think mine came with any of that. Yeah, I don't know.
I would do that because that insulation, like you're not going to see it, but as you're cooking it, it's flaking off, and that's very, very terrible to breathe in. That's worse than any of the shit that you're grinding off the knives.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Definitely. Yeah, look into that when we get off here. Just look into that a little bit. Yeah, definitely. You're gonna definitely want to get a little tub of refractory cement.
Refractory cement. See, we're all learning things here.
For sure. Yeah. Definitely get yourself. It's cheap. It's cheap. You're just gonna be. Cool. You're not gonna use your forge for 2 days. So pick a good time to do it.
Like I'll do it on Monday.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. So that, and then the fire bricks. That was available for you too there, to like that base bricks.
Oh boy. My lights are starting to flicker over here.
Dude, I lost power just before. If one of us loses power, whoever's still on, keep talking.
Knocking on wood, dude. Shit. What was your question?
The fire bricks. You had access to the fire bricks too?
I did that. I did have to buy those as well. Yeah, but that was it.
Okay.
The refractory.
That's too expensive.
No, to be honest, it cost me less than $100 to build a forge. Probably less than $50 to build it. Because I built a 2-burner forge out of, I made a round forge, and it was just pipe with a couple reducers. The actual nozzle where the gas came out, I used MIG tips. And I think that's what a lot of actual professional forge companies do, because I've seen some pictures of their burners, and I'm like, that looks like a fucking MIG welding tip.
Damn.
But that thing worked for me. I forge welded in that thing. A couple of billets I forge welded in that thing, and I was happy with that. So
that's cool. How many heads were on it? Just one head?
It was a 2-burner.
2-burner. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I purchased mine. I paid $300 for it. I fucking wish I knew what company it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I sent you the picture of it once. I have it on our phone. I'm not going to waste the time to look and go get it, but it was bought from some knife website. It was like $300 for a 2-burner. I guess it came with the fire bricks also, but I guess I was supposed to cement that shit. So, I'll do that for sure. I'm going to do that right away. Cause last episode I was saying, I was like, safety first, respiratory, I'm taking care of it. Meanwhile, the only time I take my mask off is to forge. So
definitely look into that, cause that's some dangerous stuff. You're floating around in the air.
Okay. Awesome. That's great to hear. Well, and a good tip to get started. Make sure you're not just breathing in that insulation.
Yep. That high rated insulation. You don't want to be breathing. I mean, you don't want to be breathing in any insulation whatsoever. But some bad stuff to be putting in your lungs.
Yeah. Well, all right. So you got your forge. You're gonna have to quench it. I made my own quench tank. Now you can make it out of anything. I had it out of an ammo can. I ended up welding my own, and I'm not a welder, so I had some holes in my quench tank, and I just flooded it with Rust-Oleum paint, layer by layer, until it filled those holes.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. You sound exactly like an electrician, though.
Yeah, man. Yeah, It's I keep it in the shadows. I really don't show it off, but it works. It gets the job done.
Yeah, don't look at it too close. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have it. It's tall enough to do. I could do, I guess, 18-inch blades right now, and I do want to get one bigger because I want to make some ridiculous. I want to make a sword eventually, and so I'll eventually get a bigger one. But
Mm-hmm.
what are you quenching out of? Coffee cans? What do you got?
I did the same thing. I made mine out of some tubing. I don't even know what size it is. I got a couple different quench tanks. One for smaller blades, one for bigger stuff. But yeah, same thing. I want to make a nice big one soon because I want to make a sword. Obviously, I was talking about it last time, but we'll see. We'll see when that's gonna be. Like I said, I'll make some daggers and shit first, but
Yeah,
definitely gonna be a sword coming out this year sometime. Hopefully before September. Because
oh,
maybe I'll show it off at the Renaissance Fair. But
nice.
I heard they make you zip tie them like I can't fucking break a zip tie. Okay, cool.
It's just the gesture, it's the gesture.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
whatever.
wild. No, so actually, yeah, a little side tangent. The first time I realized I wanted to make a knife was actually at the Renaissance Fair in Tuxedo. I went
Yeah,
there probably 5 or 6 years ago, before I moved up to Pennsylvania, and there was that man. I fucking wish I knew his name, knew his company, but he had big white beard, old style coal forge. And you hear it. You just hear him hammering the
yeah,
steel from far, and it called me. And I showed up to him, and he's there, piercing blue eyes, face covered in soot, just making knives. And it was the most. I don't want to say attractive, but like the most enticing thing I had ever seen. I thought about it forever, and I told Dana, if I ever got myself a garage, I'm going to make a knife.
yep,
And then when we moved to Pennsylvania, I ended up getting like spine surgery and everything. And after my spine surgery, I was like, I got to just do it. And that's what really pushed me into it. So the Renaissance Fair is what started my yearning for the forge.
that's cool, man. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. So making swords, bringing it on down. Are you a LARPer? Have you ever LARPed or anything?
I've never LARPed. I used to do all the. I mean, I guess you could call it LARPing because I did Civil War reenacting and World War II reenacting, so it's
That's
very
right.
very
Yeah.
similar, but little
They're
based
neighbors.
off of based off of true stories. You
Yeah.
know?
Well,
But no, it was cool. It
that's
was cool
awesome.
running around with vintage guns and vintage uniforms and shit. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
try
No,
to educate
I
people who didn't want to be educated, but whatever.
yeah. Yeah, you probably run into the people who don't want to be educated, and then the people who are almost like way too interested about that shit. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
hey, calm down, man. This is just a weekend thing
yeah,
for us.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It was fun though.
nerd, yeah, yeah. Nerds are a great time. Uh, but all right, so I guess the most important tool in terms of electric tool is your grinder.
Yeah, I would
Um,
say 100%.
yeah. Now, for me, I had bought a $30 2x42 at a garage sale. It was $30, just this no variable speed, just this one belt that would just spin at incredible speeds, but with no horsepower. And it worked. It worked for 2 years. It worked great. I removed stuff. I recommend, if you are getting into knife making, ultimately what I'm trying to say is you want a variable speed, nice grinder. You are going to do great work. The grinder is where everything happens. But you can get away with a $30, Craftsman belt sander, and it's going to do the job. So if you're thinking that you have to spend 2,000, 3,000 for a belt sander, it is not the case. Get the cheap one. You could even get the $60 one at Harbor Freight, and it'll do the job as long as you're not trying to make massive knives. So the belt sander is the most important tool, but you can go budget to get the first few done. Now, how did you handle your belt sander?
My first belt sander, before I built mine, I used like a 1 inch by 30, dude. It was I bought like a cheap Wen 1x30, I think it was, man. I made a bunch of knives off of that thing.
Yes, I own that same one, and I still use it. That's honestly what I use for my handles and stuff.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I finally
Yeah.
broke mine. And
Nice.
yeah, but
But so then you ended up building one.
I did, and if I'm being honest, I actually to this day still I actually haven't used that grinder in quite a while because where I'm at, it's not set up. I don't have a permanent shop set up right now, so I'm back to using like a 2x42 for now. But to be honest, when I had the variable speed, I didn't use it. I ran that motherfucker full speed 100% of the time. And I either just moved my hands quicker or just whatever I was doing, man. I never used the variable speed. Once I get back to that, I gotta get better with it.
Damn. Okay. That's wild. So my issue with the non-variable speed was every time I'd get to the tip. So, 36 grit, 60 grit, 80 grit, everything's fine. You move quick, everything's good. But once you're trying to polish and finish, as you get to the tip, that tip will turn blue every time. If I'm using a 200 grit at full speed, it's hard not to keep that tip from turning blue. So that's where I really, that finish work is where you could turn it down to 20-30% and really get a nice belt finish.
Yeah, I mean on my bevels, I think I finished those off with like maybe a 60 or an 80. I don't go much higher than that. And then I never really have a problem with blue in the tip when I'm sharpening, when I'm putting the edge on. So I don't know.
So do you use your belts, your grinder to put an edge on also? Like how do you put an edge on? What is your tool? Once you've put the bevel in, it's time to put the edge. How are you doing that?
I do it 99% of the time. I just do it with the grinder the whole time.
Yeah.
So I'll set my edge with I mean, it depends on how thin the blade is too. Most of them I'm getting pretty fucking thin now. Even my outdoor knives, because I'm not doing a heavy bevel, so I can get them pretty thin before I put the edge on. So the edge is going on with I think like an 800, and then I'm refining it all the way up to 5,000, and then hitting it with the leather strop.
Okay, so right there on your belt sander there, your belt grinder.
Yeah, I do the whole thing there now. I've done some stones and things like that. If I get like a little fucking whoop-de-doo in the blade, and you got to use a stone and stone the bevels out sometimes. I don't know if you've ever run into that situation where you got like a little wave.
Yes,
because your bevel's not 100%, and sometimes you got to get the stone out for that shit. But most of the time, I do it all by hand right on the belt.
Yeah. So I also do. I always wanted to buy that big wheel for putting an edge on, and I didn't have the money to do it. And then I ended up,
but the stone is fucked up on it, and I never used it.
Yeah.
I could honestly probably replace the stone, but I just never. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, I bought this thing that clamps your blade in, and the arm comes down at a proper angle, and you put the edge on and everything. But honestly, man, I bought it because I was like, okay, that'll give me a guaranteed. I could say what angled edge it is, dude. I just first off, I personally don't think it makes the edges as sharp as I do, and second, it takes a lot of time. So.
Yeah. So I got a question for you, like. Do you know what angles you're putting on your fucking knives? Because I really don't half the time, man. I'm like, I try what works. I'm like, all right, this is too thin, this is too thick. Like, I don't know exactly what the fucking angles are.
Yeah, so no, I don't. But I do. When I bought that tool, I took some of my knives that I had made and I laid it on to try to find out what angle I do put on generally. And it seems like at the time I was putting actually too much of an angle on. I was doing maybe 14, 15 degree angle.
That's decent for a chef's knife though, but
it is, and it's nice. But again, for me personally, I always like it a little more. So I upped it a little bit more to where I'm probably putting on a 20 degree angle, maybe an 18 to 20. But at the same time, I have no fucking idea. I'm talking out of my ass. I just, I put one or two knives onto this thing and it kind of looks. But what I do is probably the same thing you do. Is I put my belt on, and I do my first run. I just do 1 or 2 runs at 120. I have a 120 grit. I hold it up tight to my body, and I do a pass on either side just to get my edge like fucking in. And then I go to 220, and then I stop at a 400. Okay. Once I have 400, and I have it on my variable speed, nice and slow, and I just run it a few more times. Once I see an even burr all the way through the blade, I take it inside. I run it a few times on a 6,000 grit stone backwards. I'm not a person who pushes. Everything is a pull for me when I'm there. Okay. So I pull on a 6,000 just to kind of get the burrs off. I strop it, and then that's my edge. And
all right. So another question for you: if you're sharpening on your belt, what is the direction of the belt? Would you be sharpening it with the belt pulling down, or would you be sharpening it this way?
Oh, good question. So I have the blade facing down when I'm putting the edge on. Okay, so the belt's going down, blade down. Because if you have the blade up,
I've seen it done both ways.
Interesting. I will not.
It done by professionals both ways, like good knife makers. Yeah. So that's why I asked. I do it the same way as you, and that seems to work for me.
Yeah, because it pulls everything. You get the burr, you break the burr off, and then once the burr is off, you just kind of finish honing it in. Now, do you use a honing rod ever for your knives?
For mine, I mean, I'll touch it to it, just a quick run if I need to. If I'm in the middle of cutting something and I'm like, this isn't going, I'll just do a quick 2 swipes and it's pretty good. But if I can, I'd rather hit it on a leather strop all day.
Yeah.
If as long as there's not like a burr or something that I need the honing stick for. If I don't need the honing stick, then I'll hit it on a leather strop and call it a day. Unless it needs an actual sharpening, then obviously can't do that.
Yeah. So all of my kitchen knives, I have about 6 kitchen knives that Dana uses daily. And I guess I have sharpened them, but for the most part, the honing rod is what every like 2 or 3 months, I'll just hit it on the honing rod 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. So my question is on the honing rod. So this is the rod. I only pull backwards. This doesn't have an edge. Let me just say that I only pull backwards. I never run it into the rod. I'm always afraid that if I fucking move my wrist, I'm going to do it. But you watch the chefs and they're just fucking running it in, pulling it back and everything. I mean, I feel like that's a little reckless and you're not really taking care of the edge of the blade if you're just throwing it forwards and back. I could be wrong. What's your view on that?
Well, you're talking about guys who are cutting for, sometimes they might be cutting for fucking 6 hours a day. So they might be doing that 4 or 5 times that day. So I don't know. They might be pretty good at doing that shit. So, I mean, I don't do that.
You only pull, right? You only pull backwards on it, right?
I take like if this were the honing stick and like I'm holding it by the handle, obviously I stick the honing stick down into like a cutting board and I just pull it this way a couple times and I pull it the opposite way a couple times. That's it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to slap the stick with my knife and shit like that.
Yeah. I watch people with the honing rods and it makes me so nervous sometimes. I'm like, man, just chill, just relax, just slow down. There's no need.
You don't gotta go through all that.
But but putting an edge on, honestly, that was my biggest fear. So a tip I could say is relax about the edge. As long as you have an even angle going on either side, you see the burr and you then, clean and strop it. Dude, it's going to be sharper than 99% of the knives you buy at Target, no matter what your 100%. Method is. So, I mean, that's what I also say too, is like, you watch the videos of people cutting hair in half and all this stuff. And listen, that's awesome. You want a super sharp knife. You want it as sharp as you can get it. But also 80% of the people are using knives that can't even cut your skin, like it's almost like safety knives and people don't even realize it. So just when I make my edges, I don't go crazy.
use their knives. I'm like, shit, man, this sucks.
I was,
and I don't want to offer sharpening services to people either. Like, I don't want to get into the business of sharpening other people's knives that they have. Like, that's not for me, man. So it's like,
no.
They'll ask me like, oh, is it really dull? Like, can you sharpen it? I'm like, no, it's all right.
Yeah, dude.
Don't take it home. No, I don't want to fucking take it home and sharpen your shit.
I ain't sharpening it, but you could buy one of my knives if you want. You know.
Yeah.
And my knives are cheap. I'm trying so hard to just keep them as cheap as possible. That way, anybody could just buy one. You know, that's
dude. I mean, if you really look into the knife world, a $200 to $250 chef's knife, it's a good fucking deal,
dude.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So yeah.
My problem.
Our price points are good right now.
Yeah, for sure.
They'll definitely be going up by the end of the year.
Yes, yeah. For 2024,
like this dude,
buy it now.
I might be an idiot for selling this for fucking $250. You know what I mean? But like, I got to get my name out there too. So,
yeah, exactly. We gotta work our way up and earn it and all that stuff. And also,
and I'm
my lights.
And dude, I'm in no rush like to up my prices or anything. Like
no,
I want to have my knives in people's hands and people to say good things about my knives before I really make that. Like I got really great feedback so far. Honestly, I really cannot complain whatsoever. Even some of the first knives I've sold that I was really nervous about, like a couple of years down the road, I wound up messaging those people and they're like, nah, man, this thing's awesome. I use it every day. I'm like, wow, that's fucking cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, that was good to hear because I don't even know what kind of fucking glue I used on that knife. I'm pretty sure I made somebody like a sax knife, a Viking sax knife, and I think that thing was like 3/16 thick, dude. Fucking. But
listen, you can put an edge on anything. I have 1/4-inch thick blades over here, and you know they're sharp as fuck. You cut anything and have. Again, if it's quality steel, it's almost hard. It's hard not to put an edge on some of this stuff. It's really what it comes down to.
Well, not just if it's quality steel. If it's quality steel hardened correctly, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You gotta. And I noticed you mentioned something. I think it might have been last week. How you got away from canola oil. I still use canola oil. I haven't gotten away from it yet, and I can't remember what my carbon. I'll have to send out. I'm doing some carbon soon. I'll have to send them out again because I did send some out, and I can't remember what they were off the top of my head now. But yeah, when I used the canola oil, they were good. So I never changed it. I never went to the parks.
So an admission of mine is up until recently, I thought I was using Park 50 oil because I had bought it and I'd put it in, but I had mixed it with canola. So it was actually part canola, Park 50, and a little bit of olive oil because I ran out. So it was a premium blend, and I had thought that it was mostly Park 50. And then when I finally dumped it and put in pure Park 50, I realized that I had to be maybe 40% Park 50 and probably 50% canola and then 10 olive. But I mean, it quenched great.
Looked into that shit. Like, what are they saying the benefits are to getting Park 50?
So my understanding is Park 50, I think, quenches it a little faster, which allows it to get a little harder if possible. But so my issue is when
point or a lower, would that be a higher flash point or whatever that means?
Yeah, but so when I first bought it, again, as I was saying in an earlier episode, I didn't know I had to heat up my oil, and I was overheating my blades. And canola oil was forgiving enough to let me get away with it. And when I had said that I had, had that blade break on me from the quench when it shattered, it was in the Park 50. So the Park 50, because it wasn't heated right and my blade wasn't heated right, it was not as forgiving. So that was something that I was nervous about finally moving to. But now that I'm, I know my temperatures and everything, I feel like it's more consistent with the Park 50. And I've never had my blades tested. I do have the scratch, like I had said, so I do scratch. But the way I know they're sharpened, they're hardened, is I had one time forgotten to drill holes in them, and when I tried to drill it in, it was impossible. So clearly it hardened.
Yeah, that's definitely a clear sign there. But yeah, if you want, one day when we meet up, man, and if you have one laying around, give it to me. You know, I have access. Not personally, but I have a guy who has access to a great machine. You know, it gets, and the thing I love about it is they get it tested every 6 months, so you know it's calibrated. You know it's accurate. So I know.
Okay.
I know the numbers are right, which is fucking cool. You know, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling getting your knife back, and you're like, oh, cool, man. Like I know
Yes.
now. Like I've been doing it right. Like keep doing it the same way, and that's that.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Then I'm going to mail you one of my knives. I got to send you this hat anyway, so I'm going to mail you this hat and a knife for you to just have it tested. Just give me a number, just so I know.
Maybe we can meet up soon too, because I want to do like a podcast in one of our shops or something. One of these spring days too.
That'd be great.
That'd be cool if we could get together. You know.
Hell yeah,
Cool
absolutely.
episode. Maybe we'll even fuck with some shit in the shop. You know.
Ooh, yeah. Maybe we'll fucking make a Sanmai. We'll each make a Sanmai or something, and then we'll make blades and show off what we ended up with from the Sanmai. I love Sanmai, man. Honestly, I know you said you like Hamones, but like there's something about Sanmai.
I do too. I mean, I really love a cool looking Sanmai. But yeah, a Hamon is just a cool process to me, because just like how far back it dates, dates all the way back to the samurai, and how they would quench their swords for forgiveness in sword fighting. You know what I mean? And it's just that aspect is kind of cool. So,
yeah, and it makes so much sense.
Chopping blades.
Yeah, it makes sense. It looks beautiful. It is nice. I've never tried it. I've never gotten the clay in order to do it. So that'll be something one of my next experiments.
Yeah, and a tip since we're on the tips episode here. If anybody you get started in that stuff, you have to baffle it if you're doing it under fire. So what I mean by that is, like, if you have like a piece of metal tube or something you can put in between, something metal that you could put in between the blade and the open flame, because if you just put it on the open flame, that clay will kind of chip off the blade before you get it in the quench.
Ooh,
it might, or it might not.
Right.
But if you have that baffle in there, you'll be fine.
Now, in your forge, you just let that flame hit the steel, right?
For the Hamones, no, but yeah, most
typically,
if I'm forging Sanmai, or if I'm forging something, yeah,
soak it in the flames. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I don't baffle anything until unless I'm heat treating. They say you even should heat treat with a baffle, but the 1095, I never baffled that when I heat treated.
Yeah. Yeah, I never, I didn't even know that was the word for it. I know the process of it, but I didn't even know the term for it. And my big thing is when I'm using the forge, obviously if you leave the flame hit in one spot of your steel, it almost like stains the steel,
Yeah, you better move that shit. Well, it's almost like melting it, like where that very, very tip of that flame is the hottest point. Yeah. And like you'll see, like it's almost like a swirl mark where that is if you leave it there too long, because that part of the steel actually melted.
Yeah. So I do not step away from my forge. I have it in there and I'm moving it like a omelet on an open flame, just in and out, flipping it, getting it in there.
Yeah. Turning it on at all kinds of angles. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But I do see on the Instagrams all the people with, that steel frame. That way no flame hits it. And I love the look of it. I mean, and it makes sense. And even heat without the flame hitting it, it all makes sense. I just personally, I don't do it. It's one extra step that
I've never really felt the need to do it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, tell me about your anvil selection, what you went through for that, and what made you go with what you went with.
Okay. So I knew I needed an anvil, and I wanted to get at least a 90+ pound anvil. I wanted something big enough to where I could really slap some steel on it and everything's okay. I went to the Facebook Marketplace to get a used anvil. I figured I'd just get one a little rough. Someone's trying to get rid of it. Let me get it. There was no chance. These antique anvils, these older anvils, they're $1,000 plus. For a size like that, they're in okay condition, and I don't mind a little dings on it, but it was $1,000 plus, and I couldn't afford it. There was no way, and that's when I reached out to you. I was looking at, because I didn't know any better, I was looking at cast anvils because they're cheaper rather than forged anvils, and you kind of let me know, hey, so tip, a cast anvil is not the same as a forged anvil, and a forged anvil is I don't know, more solid, has better bounce. What is actually the purpose of a forged anvil, actually?
The hardness is a little bit better, so you're going to get more durability, more hardness. Like you said, better bounce. You know, you want to really hear that nice ping in the anvil. You're not going to get a really nice ping out of a cast anvil. You know, it's molten metal that they pour into a cast and hand it out. Like a cast anvil is kind of more like a jeweler's anvil.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be pounding on that thing too crazily.
Yeah, no, and we're big guys. We got big forearms. We're smashing the shit out of this stuff, you know. So
yeah, I want to hit that thing as least amount of times as I can. So I'm hitting that fucking thing as hard as I can.
So hard. I tell you, it's funny though.
Tactic, but yeah.
That forearm is burning after you work on it for a while. Oh, I love that feeling. I love it. But so a
couple of guys at the jiu-jitsu class are like, oh man, like, what are you doing for your grips? I'm like, dude, I just fucking pound steel, man. holding an 8-pound hammer going like this for fucking hours, dude. That'll make your grips tight, dude.
Yeah, that'll get you way quicker. I remember the first few times I had gotten some nail railroad spikes, and I didn't want to waste time in between heats. So I put 2 of them in, and I figured I would hammer one, and while the other one was heating, I was hammering the other, and I burned myself out halfway through. I was exhausted. That's what I learned. Yeah. There's a reason why that time is there.
Is good. It's good. Yeah.
But so I ended up buying my anvil from your recommendation, NC. What's the name of the company? Help me out here.
NC Tool. Mm-hmm.
NC
Tool. Yep.
Yeah. And it was $500, which was the second highest purchase I've made for my garage.
And which one did you get again? Did you get the bladesmithing one, or did you get a Farrier's anvil?
I got the bladesmithing one. Gotcha. It just because it said bladesmithing, I didn't know the difference. I don't know the difference. I mean, it's got a nice horn on it. It has that square hole in it. Has a nice flat area. I've been able to make a bunch of different stuff. I've been able to round some stuff. So I'm very happy with it. The one thing I did know, so tip, make sure it's very secured down, because even if it's forged and you want that ping, if it's bouncing on whatever it's on, you're not getting the same effect at all. No, so make sure it's as anchored down and just chained down. So mine actually is a little loose right now. I need to find a way to retain.
You can even wrap a bunch of chains around it too, make it heavier too,
Yeah.
The next time I'm gonna actually build a new base for mine pretty soon. And I'm gonna build it out of maybe some 2x3 tubing that I have laying around, and I'm gonna fill that shit with concrete too, dude.
Oof.
I'm gonna fill the tubing with concrete, cap it off, and then maybe even throw like a couple inches of a log on top of that to absorb a little bit, and then call it a day. I want to make it so I can transport it around a little bit, because I got a NC Tool anvil as well, but I didn't get the bladesmithing one. I think I got a 70-pound anvil, to be honest.
Okay.
I
think mine's 70.
Basically,
I think it's 70.
Is it?
Yeah, because I wanted 90 until I realized the prices, so I think it's 70.
Yeah. The price is fucking really changed. I mean, I wanted a 120-pound anvil or 150-pound anvil, really, but I wasn't paying that to try it, to try it out.
Yeah, but, fuck that shit.
Yeah, I believe mine is 70. And the biggest thing for my purchase was I wanted to be able to move it. I want to be able to transport it. I want to be able to bring it to things, because I was also thinking about the possibility of eventually doing demonstrations and shit, like maybe going to the fairgrounds and setting up for the week and making, forging stuff and doing stuff like that. But haven't done anything like that yet, and I don't know if I will this year or next year, but it is something I'm going to look into eventually, because like we were talking about last episode, um, just having a couple friends and bringing them by and basically giving them a class,
Yeah.
teaching them how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the ultimate, the summary of, as we're going through all these tips and tricks, it should all boil down to, this is all doable. Anybody can do this stuff. This really, you have a lot of skills. You're able to build all your stuff. I did not have a lot of skills. I had to buy and, garage sale all my stuff. But at the end of the day, you can make a knife. It is not some,
Not that hard.
Now, to make a good knife, yes, the skills, the finish work, to make sure that the blade is thin enough, all that stuff, it's gonna take a lot of time. But to get your first knife, it's something you can do. Do it.
Yep. So to run off that a little bit, one of the things that I wouldn't even say I regret it, but it was like one of the things that I feel like I did that I shouldn't have, is I wasted a lot of time on research. And I researched a lot of shit, and I was like, I just wanted to, that's how I am. Like, I wanted to make sure before I even started, I was doing everything right. I would say before I started, 80% of that shit I researched, I didn't fucking use any of it. You know what I mean? So the tip I would say is just fucking do it. Go for it. Pick up a piece of steel and just fucking go for it. And if you fuck something up, okay, don't do that next time. Pick up another piece of steel. Okay, this is how I should do this. Test out pieces. Take pieces of steel. Like I took a bunch of pieces of steel to work on my plunge grinds. I took a bunch of pieces of steel that were just random pieces of steel. Go to the scrapyard and get some pieces of steel, or talk to your local metal shop and ask for some scrap, and just practice with some shit. Practice plunge grinds. Practice, holding things still, putting an edge onto something.
Yeah. Getting in there is honestly
just doing it.
Yeah. And doing it wrong is fine. Do it wrong, because then you did it wrong.
You're doing something, at least you're learning. You know what I mean? If you do it wrong, you learned. That's not how I'm supposed to do that.
Yeah. So I was actually I was the opposite of you. I wish I did more research than I had done. I watched a few episodes. So I joked once. I watched the trilogy of Karate Kid, and my buddy was like, "What'd you think of it?" I was like, "Pretty good." And honestly, I'm pretty sure I know karate now. And I truly, in my heart, felt like I was better at karate from watching Karate Kid. So it was the same thing for me with Forged in Fires. I watched the whole season, and I was like, "Well, I pretty much got this." So that's why I still say, like, if there wasn't a fireball coming out of my quench tank, I was upset, and everything had to be screeching hot. And like, I recommend just find enough information to where you feel confident to start fucking it up.
Forum. Don't go. Yeah, I would. One thing I tell people who've asked for some tips is don't go off of Forged in Fire, because they show you just enough to get you in trouble. They show you just enough that, like, all right, I think I know what to do, just so you fuck it up. So just do that little bit of research, learn the process, go find blade forums, and read a couple of their excerpts. Take an hour or two and read a couple of excerpts, and just go from there.
Yeah, and find one steel type and just stick with it for a while. I found myself jumping around. Yeah, I was just grabbing any steel I could, rebar and, railroad spikes and all this stuff. And I didn't even know what steel it was.
Similar? Aren't those both like 50, 51, 60 or something like that?
I think they're
made out of.
I don't know. I know they have carbon in them, but I don't know if it's like a high carbon.
Those should be carbon. Those should be this, I believe.
Okay.
Those are the same steel as leaf springs. 5160 or
okay, because I made a really nice kitchen knife out of the railroad spike. I hammered it out. I made this beautiful kitchen knife, a steak knife, just like a little dinner table knife. And I got it really sharp, and it was a way more flexible than I had thought. And then when I got it back, it had lost its edge pretty quickly. So I want to say I want to say that it didn't actually hold its edge well. So I don't know how hard it got. So I'm unsure about the railroad spikes, The rebar, I have no idea.
I just looked up the railroad spikes, and it says they
Okay.
are very relatively low carbon.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, it forged nice. It did harden, but it lost its edge pretty quickly. When he brought it back to me,
Yeah.
it was a nice flexibility. It did its job. So I mean,
Probably
no,
a good butter
don't.
knife.
Yeah, don't make a knife that you're going to be beating up on a railroad spike. But at the same time, I took rebar and I was making what do you call them? Pry bars out of them. Where I was just literally taking the rebar, hammering one side into a point so I could put a handle on, and then flattening the other side to a crowbar, and I just quenched the edge, and I didn't even temper it. It was pretty thick and nice pry bar. So
Perfect.
yeah, that's a good use for medium carbon steel.
Yeah, as long as it's thick enough.
Yeah. Listen, it's steel. It's pretty fucking good stuff. It really is. It's a good material, I gotta say. But all right, so I want to shout out the most used tool in my shop. Cutting steel. You have to cut steel. No matter what, you got to cut steel. You order a big sheet, you got to cut some out. You want to get it done, cut it out. People have bandsaws. You really need a nice bandsaw to be cutting through all this steel. You really do. The angle grinder is the way to go. So shout out to the angle grinder. If you're going to buy one tool, get an angle grinder because you can put the wheel to cut. You could put the belts, the disc sander, or the flap disc in order to sand stuff down. I mean,
I built an entire knife from a 4.5-inch angle grinder. The whole thing.
Damn. All right.
The only thing I didn't. Oh no, I think no, I didn't put an edge on it with that. I think I built the whole thing with a 4.5-inch angle grinder, and I put like a shitty edge on it with like an orbital sander, and then once I got like the belt sander, I put an edge on it.
Nice. Yeah, man. It's a great tool. It's a great tool.
I use a 4.5-inch angle grinder a lot still.
Yeah. All right. So here's the tip though. Wear a face mask when you're using that thing. That is a safety first. I don't wear gloves, but I do wear my safety. Oof. That was a nice punch. My visor. Yeah, I've seen one too many Instagram videos of a guy pulling half of a blade out of his hat or out of his glasses. I ain't playing that game.
I think those videos are fake though.
I'm not risking
it. I mean, I will say if that blade is exploding on you, you fucked up a long time ago.
I had one explode on me.
Were you like twisting it and shit?
Yeah, I do. Well, I brought it down to the nub. There was nothing left to it.
Okay.
It just kept going, and it just exploded. But no damage, but scared the shit out of me.
I haven't had one explode on me, and I've been doing metalwork for a long time. It's
that damn steady hand. I think you're right, though. I think it has to be that when you're going down, you end up twisting your wrist, which bends the blade enough to blow it up. Yeah. That makes sense to how to do it. So if you are being careless with the tool, obviously it's going to be dangerous.
Yep.
And
that's like another thing too is, a good tip to have is when you're doing those things, always make sure like do a practice run, just like do the movement without actually running the tool. Like I'll do that all the time. Like, do I have enough room? All right, I'm going to make it all the way through. Nothing's going to get in my way. And I do that all the time. I still do that to this day. Even sometimes when I'm welding stuff, like I'll run the welder, I'll run it just to make sure like, okay, I got all the room I need. And then
I have a drawer full of random cut steel. And whenever I'm going to try to do a specific design or a specific again, I don't have any of my fucking knives here. Whenever I'm trying to do something, I'll always do test runs on random steel just to make sure that I know what I'm doing, I know what to line up, and it's all good. So yeah, definitely make sure you're using the tools confidently and you know what you're doing, and wear your PPE. The other tool is a drill press. Now, I bought a used drill press from a garage sale. I got it for like $50, and fucking does a job. You do not need a great drill press unless you're doing some real fine, intricate work. And I know a lot of people have the vices where you're able to come in and all this stuff. Oh man, my internet's getting weird. This is
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, but the drill press
We're
is
getting close here.
yeah, we're almost there. But the drill press is good. It's important, but you could get it as cheap as you want. I mean, as long as it puts a hole, you're drilling through what, 1/8-inch steel. It'll be fine.
Drill for a long time before I had the drill press. I used a hand drill for a while, dude.
A hand drill could be more expensive. Yeah, a nice hand drill is expensive. So
yeah, I already had it though, so it was just a matter of pulling it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, then after that I just bought the cheap. I like the Wen products.
Yeah.
They're cheap and they seem to work pretty good for me. I haven't had any problems with them. So I bought the little benchtop. I think it's like a 8-inch drill press. But it does everything I needed to do. I got the little polishing wheels I can put on it too. So when I'm done drilling, I could throw a little polishing setup on there. And
oh, that's nice. Cool. Yeah. Before I got
another tip, real quick, if you don't do this already, with your drill press, you can get a piece of threaded rod and make it as long as you want, and you can put a couple different buffing wheels on it. So you can have your all the way on the bottom or whatever. You can have your one buffing wheel that's got a shit ton of rouge on it, and then a cleaner one, and then a cleaner one, and then the cleanest one. So you can rouge it all out, but you're not high polishing your stuff actually. So
really, so yeah, I don't high polish, but so you're saying on that rod, put the different pads stacked up it. That way you just, while it's spinning, you can hit them all.
Yeah, so I don't have to stop and change anything. So I'll start polishing.
That's a great tip.
Bottom one, and then I'll go to the next one and start cleaning it off, and then I'll buff it off on the next one, and then no stopping in between, no changing bits, nothing like that.
Damn, I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Right. A little more efficient.
Yeah. Now, one of my biggest things is when I make my knives, I like to have. Oh man, I don't even have one around here right now. Well, I guess so. So this nice little rounded area here, nice little spot for you to put your fingers in. And in order to get a rounded area, it's hard with a belt sander. So I would put a 1-inch drum sander bit on my drill press, and it would just spin this little 1-inch, and I would press my knife in there and I would work it. And that's how I would do it until I got my variable speed drive with the 1-inch, wheel on it. So that's another way. The drill press can do a lot of that, the drum sanding easily.
Yeah, so it's not just a drill.
Yeah, no. So yeah, if anything, get an angle grinder and get a drill press.
Yeah,
that's it.
So top 3 tools. If you were trying to make a knife, what would be your main 3 go-to tools to make a knife start to finish?
Well, I mean, you need a belt sander, you want an angle grinder, and you probably want the drill press. Those are probably the 3 tools you need. And with those 3, you could do it. Now, to make the knife, for the handles, there's one thing that you really do need above all else. As many clamps as you fucking can get. Just clamps. Whatever kinds.
Yeah,
the pressure vice clamps, just the little, duck mouth clamps. I'm using all the technical terms here. Just clamps, because when you get the handle scales on, or even if you're doing the hidden tang, having something that just clamps down and holds it all together it's going to save you so much headache.
Very important. Yep, yeah. Very important.
And they're cheap. You can get them again at garage sales, at this and that. Black Friday at Home Depot and Harbor Freight, stock up on clamps.
Yeah,
because they get damaged.
That's something I'll buy from Harbor Freight for sure. I mean, there's some things that I don't like buying from Harbor Freight, but I'll buy clamps from Harbor Freight usually. They're especially like I use the little C clamps, so it's just a threaded rod going in there, so pretty foolproof.
Yeah. Also, one cool thing that I learned is for cutting Kydex and G10, I've always kind of used a bandsaw. I have a little mobile bandsaw that I set up on my wall, and I just kind of run it. And it's kind of messy. Tin snips, cut Kydex and G10 clean, very clean. It's a
How's
little
that
hard to work it through, but I mean, that's my new way. It doesn't make any dust because I mean, both of them get a bit stinky when you're grinding and cutting that all. So tin snips,
Yeah.
man, that's good.
I've used a bunch of different things. I've used a router. It gets a little messy with the router. But
yeah. So just a few
Kydex shit actually for all these things I've got to put Kydex on, and I bought some cool different colors to try out. Some fun stuff to mess with.
Yeah. Dude, I like that Kydex comes in so many different designs and colors, and you can really do some cool stuff. I got the woodland camo Kydex, and woof, man, that stuff looks just a nice woodland camo, and then the inside is like this tan. Makes it look great.
Camo for to try out for my knife.
Nice.
So yeah, it's my favorite camo. If you couldn't tell.
Everybody's got a favorite camo, right?
Yeah, man.
I don't know anything about the camos. I've learned I prefer mine to be more brown than green. A brown camo is nice.
I mean, if one's cheaper than the other, I'll get the fucking cheaper one. But
yeah,
I don't care. If the deer doesn't see me, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Listen, if there's a pattern on it, that's good enough. They don't fucking see color too well, right?
In a fucking plaid shirt if I have to. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, that's what they did, right? Wasn't
fucking deer's colorblind anyway, dude?
Yeah, plaid was the original camo, so
yeah.
So a few tips. One of the biggest things that I ran into when I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy my material. What grits do I buy for my belts? And what I realized the most is I use 36 grit the most to remove steel. So just stock up on some 36 grit. I then typically I have 80 and 60 grit, and I use it sometimes. But really, I then go to 120. So 120 would probably be the second most important, and then 220. Anything after 220 is luxury. So those are my three grits that I use: 36, 120, 220. How about you? What's your three grits?
It would be hard for me to pick three, but if I had to pick three, I would go with a 36 for obviously the stock removal, but I do a lot of the sharpening, and like I said, I go up to 5,000 with my sharpening. So for the fine edge, I would have to say I need 1,000 and 1,500 at least. So if I were to pick only three belts, I would go with a 36, 1,000, and 1,500.
Damn. So I'm so curious when we finally get together and we get our knives. I'm very curious to see how your edge cuts compared to my edge, because I finish my edge at 220 and you're clearly going up to a higher grit. I'm very excited to see, because obviously if there's a difference, I'll go up to a higher grit. If it's minimal, then that'd be interesting too. So I'm so excited to finally get our knives compared next to each other and see how it all works and how thick your blade actually is. Because you look at pictures, you only know, it only shows so much. So
yeah, pictures you can't really tell much. Speaking of that too, I completely forgot to print out that thing. I got to do that tonight, or I probably won't do it tonight. I'm probably going to bed right after I fucking log off of this.
A late one.
Since I'm waking up at 4:30. But I'm going to set a reminder in my phone before I go to bed to print that fucking paper out for that show, so I can send that in. That Lehigh Valley knife show.
Yeah, I sent mine in. I got 2 tables. I want a big presence. I'm gonna make. I bought a huge plate of 1/4-inch steel, so I'm gonna try to make just a solid framed hatchet or some sort of axe or something like that, and so I had big flashy things on the table, big heavy things that people could just pick up and see what it is. And I figured, a hatchet or two, why not?
I thought about I probably will do it, especially since I'm going to go to this show because I think it'll be a cool like conversation piece. Is I want to do it's kind of like a San Mai idea, but I want to take a piece of stainless and wrap it around uh, whatever, just to get the shape, wrap it around something, and then put a piece of like 1095 or something in the center and forge weld that all together, and then sharpen it and bring it down to a pretty cool edge and make it look like basically like a Viking fighting axe.
Damn.
I think that would be fucking cool, especially once it's all etched up, dude. You know, I've never seen anybody do like a San Mai hatchet or axe or anything like that. So I was like, you know what? Let me do it. I'll do a fucking Viking fighting axe.
Oof. Yeah.
So that's on my list to be done by April, you know. And I have it all planned out and drawn out, and I just gotta basically do it.
That's the problem. Is it's just over a month away. Like I keep on thinking about all these things I want to do. What I kind of wanted to do originally was I wanted to make a massive cleaver with two hands and call it the guillotine, and just have this 1/4-inch thick, fucking 5-6 pound, cleaver with two hands. And Dana's like,
yeah,
what the fuck are you talking about? Just make something that people can use. I'm like, but it'll be called the guillotine. She's like, Michael,
what the fuck?
Yeah, it's just
so
you know what? The more she tells me not to, the more I want to do it. But like, how cool! It's blackened and heavy. It's like a Dark Souls weapon or something.
Yeah, that'd be fucking cool.
Yeah, but no, that's the problem. Not the problem, but the reason why we make knives is for the enjoyment and the creativity. And this is I love making knives. I love it. And honestly, I made a business.
I love the whole process, but like just seeing it done, dude, is fucking cool.
Yeah.
Especially like, I don't know if you've ever been there, but like I've been there a couple times with some of my knives where I'm like, man, I don't know about this thing. I don't know about this thing. And then I'm done and I'm like, this thing is sick. Keeping the shit.
Yeah.
That's happened to me more times than not. You know what I mean?
That's the time old tale of any piece of art, where the whole process of it, you're ignorant if you're not doubting and questioning what you're doing during art. You have to be, critical. And that's what makes great art. I paint and I alter magic cards. And I joke all the time that up until I do my last brush stroke, I am absolutely devastated with how it looks. And then it all finishes and you take that deep breath and you step back and you realize what you created. And that's what we keep chasing. It's that feeling of knowing like, oh my God, I had an idea, and no matter what was happening during it, I mean, even the last folder I made, I drilled the wrong hole, and it's this thing now where make it happen. You can do this. And it's happy accidents. Yep. It's the Bob Ross effect,
figuring it out through the adversity is a thing too. And like, that's another little tip is, man, like when you make a little mistake, something doesn't go right.
Good.
Who fucking cares? Good. Yeah. Good. But dude, put it aside. You know how many knives that I was like, fuck, man, I fucked this thing up. Put it aside to go work on something else for 3 or 4 days, and then you see that piece sitting there, and you're like, "Oh fuck, dude, I know exactly what to do with that."
Yeah,
that's happened to me a bunch of times, man. Where I'm like, I think this thing's fucked. This thing might wind up in the garbage. This thing might wind up in the scrap pile. And then a week later, you look at it, and you're like, "Oh, duh, let me do that."
Yeah, so this knife right here, the one I just had, this was a random piece of 1/4-inch thick steel that was just scrap. It was thrown out, but it looked like this. It just happened to have all these jagged cuts. And I was like, oh, I can do something with this. So it was scrap laying on the ground to be thrown out from another project. And I saw potential. I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. Which is Tanto, right? Tanto edge.
Tanto.
Tanto. Yeah. It looked like it, and you make it happen. That's art. That's what we're doing. That's the beauty of this all. Yeah. I mean,
useful art.
The most useful.
It not only looks cool, but fucking works, dude. Yeah. And that's my whole goal, man. Like I want my shit to fucking look cool. Like I want people to be like, wow, man, that's a nice piece. Yeah, it's not only fucking nice, it works.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh shit, what?
yeah,
I feel like that's that's a lost thing nowadays. It's either nice or it works.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
both
yeah,
anymore, man.
yeah. You don't.
But
Yeah, you don't get. Someone once said to me, "Cheap, fast, and quality. You can only pick two, but you can't have three."
yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about that for a long time. But so I mean, honestly, so I started my company. I just wanted to make. I just want to make knives. I don't want to own a business. I don't want to, I want to make knives. But in order to keep on making knives, I have to get some sort of income in. So it's actually just
Yeah.
my drive to make knives that's doing it. If I hit the lottery, I would make knives forever and just give them away. I just want people to use my knives. That's really,
Mhm.
and I know you feel the same way. Like there's no better feeling than knowing someone is using your knife. And
Getting
that's
good
why
use
we keep,
out of it.
yeah. And that's why we try to keep our prices up. We have to value our time and we need to make our money for it. And again, we'll do a whole episode on pricing and what money is in this industry. But um,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I just want people to have some knives. I didn't know how great they were until I made one. And I was like, this is the funnest thing in the world. I want people to share this. So do you have any more I have one more tip I want to mention before we sign off. I know we're over an hour. Do you have any other tips before I let this one out?
Any last minute tips off the top of my head here? No, I don't think
I'll
I
tell
do.
you what, let me throw mine out and see if you could think of just one more closure here. My biggest tip is when I was shaping my handles for the first time, I was taking designs that I saw online and they didn't exactly reflect what I was capable of doing in my shop. My biggest tip is when you're making your handle, first off, make sure it's comfortable. It has to be comfortable. But two, make sure you're doing a shape that is easy and convenient because the handle needs to be very clean. That's where your hand goes. Everything has to be a neat edge, polished, smooth. Make sure that whatever profile you're doing, it's gonna be good. My first designs, I had like these little notches and grooves and everything, and I didn't have the angles to do it. And I'm trying to do it with a straight edge, and it was choppy and it didn't feel good. And they didn't all like the radius wasn't properly radiused, it was not even. And I was trying to force a square peg into a round hole, kind of what it came down to. And now my handle shape now, I don't know if I'll ever change it. And I've been through 4 iterations. And this one now, I love it. It's easy to do. I can do it with my eyes closed. And I really want to say when you're designing that handle, find out what you can do and just do it really well.
Yep. The handle is definitely, I mean, it's what brings the whole thing together. In both aspects, in aesthetics and in use. I mean, you can have the most beautiful looking blade, and if it's not comfortable in your hand, it's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? So everything I feel like really does come down to that handle. And like you said, you got to make sure it's comfortable, and you can't just be selfish and think about yourself either. You got to think about like who's going to be holding this knife? What are they going to be using it for? How are they going to be cutting with it? Like, are they going to be holding it this way and cutting down mostly? Or are they going to be chopping with the tip? Are they going to be chopping with the heel? You got to, all that's got to come into effect. And if it could be used both ways. If it could be, they could be chopping with the front or the heel, the tip of the heel. Then you got to make it comfortable to do both. That thing better feel like a fucking, you better be able to index it right. You better be able to. One of the things that I feel like is pretty important is I want to be able to know where the edge of that blade is without staring at that blade, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be able to index that thing, and that's kind of what this little piece is for. And like I could close my eyes and I know where the blade is. I know it's down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I like having, and especially like the chef's knives.
Yeah. And so I don't do too much cooking. My wife is a phenomenal cook, and I kind of step back. I'll grill but in terms of cooking. So I don't use my knives too often. And when I do, it's always a treat in the kitchen. But one thing that I didn't realize from making knives to using knives is when I'm making a knife, I intend it to be held like this. You know, like this is how you hold a knife. But then you go to cook, and this is not at all how you hold a cooking knife. You have it like this. This is how you hold it. So
holding it like a drumstick almost, you know.
Yeah, kind of where, yeah. And so that's something that I needed to teach myself is like, yes, this area for your finger is good for a lot of it. This place for your thumb is good, but make sure that it's not too thick. Make sure that it's balanced here. Make sure that, and an edge, it's nice to have around. Most cutting is a roll. There's a lot of slicing, but half the time it's me just kind of bringing it down. It's a rock, it's a roll. So it's all those little things to think through. And that you don't even have to worry about that shit. Go make a few knives and then worry about that. Yeah, just make a knife and then worry about that stuff,
Going back to what I said earlier, man, if you're thinking about it, in the least, do a little bit of research. Don't just trust Forge and Fire and shit like that. Do a little bit of research, but just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Buy a few things, buy a belt sander if you need one, buy a sheet of steel so you can cut a 3 knives out of and make them.
Yeah.
Do the whole thing, start to finish.
Yeah, and you can order billets of 1084 on Amazon, super cheap. They come already annealed and ready to go. And if you don't have a forge, like, so we said, a drill press, an angle grinder, and whatever the third one was, the belt sander. So yeah, you kind of need some belt sander and all that stuff. But like, if you don't have a forge, you could just get a MAP gas torch and just run it on your blade. As long as your blade isn't that big, if it's like a 3-inch blade, you could simply use a MAP gas torch and just make it red with that.
You can basically, I've seen guys that basically build a tiny little forge for those little 3-4 inch 5-inch blades. It's just a little tiny insulated tube that they drill a hole in so the MAP gas can stick in, and that's like, it's a great idea. If you're doing tiny little blades, or you only got to heat up that much, that's perfect. As long as you're paying attention to the heat and the signatures and not getting it too hot and keeping it even, move it around
nice
a lot.
Glowing
It'll
red.
be fun.
Yeah, nice glowing red with a little torch. You put it into some canola oil from the kitchen.
Yep.
Oh,
keep your magnet close by, especially if it's your first time. Last tip I guess I'd have for you, which was a big one for me, and I still use it, is keep a magnet handy. You don't have to get that thing white hot before you dip it in oil. As long as it's a little red and it's, you stick it against a magnet and it doesn't stick, it's good. It's good. Put it in the oil, and you're good to go.
That's a great finishing tip. Yes. Because once that steel is glowing and it is demagnetized, you're pretty much at the point of quench. So make sure that the whole blade is even.
I'll check it on the magnet, and if it's demagnetized, I'll put it back in the forge for another couple seconds, get it back to where I just saw it, and right from the forge right into the oil.
Yep.
It's going to be what you want.
Yeah. I mean, that's the guaranteed thing. Is as long as it's demagnetized, you're going to get something. And especially now, I know you use 1095 for your carbon. I use 1084. I've used 1095. They're interchangeable. Honestly, I don't see the difference in using them. But I was always told 1084 is more forgiving. So if you're making your first knife, just grab some 1084. It's not inferior to 1095. That percentage of hardness that you might not be able to achieve that 1095 can is not going to change how your veggies are cut, is not going to change how you're splitting your wood. It's gonna do the same
unless
job.
You're hardening in that oven that I have, unless you're using the oven and getting exact temperatures with your carbon steels, going from 1095 to 1094 in a forge, it's not gonna fucking matter. Not gonna make any difference.
No, not at all, man. So that's it, man. Those are some tips and tools to get you started. Just try it. Just grab some steel. For $100, you can get yourself your own knife for the first time. And I promise you, it's going to open up a floodgate to wanting to make more. It really hasn't stopped. My life is ruined because I can't stop making knives,
Lost your
man.
sound a little bit. I can't hear you anymore.
Oh no. Oh well, if that's the case, can you hear me now?
Nah.
Oh shit. All right. Well then, take us on out, man. Close us out. Can you hear me? No.
Oh. Yep. Now I can. Yeah.
You got me.
Yeah, dude.
Well, I think that is our cue to sign on out of here, brother.
Yeah, might be, man.
Hopefully you end up getting a table at that show. I'd love to see you there. I think that'll be a great weekend for us, and just kind of get some feedback on what's going on. And listen, man, you have yourself a good week. I'm excited to see what you're working on. For me, unfortunately, I'm not gonna have too much time in the forge, so we'll see, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Next week, man.
Absolutely. You have a good one, everybody. Take care. Go make a knife.